Welcome to the show. It is Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with Irish Breakdown on Sports Radio 960 AM WSBT. My name is Sean Stiers. I am joined by my old pal, Vince DeDario. Vince, you look, I'm looking at you in the YouTube stream. You look like you're feeling it a little bit today. You look a little down in the dumps, I've got to say.
Well, I would say tired is the more requisite description. Okay. It's been a long, I went down to Kokomo last night, drove down for it was for a Hillsdale welcome party kind of thing, and then we drove back.
In Kokomo?
Yes, because it was for the Indiana people that are going to Hillsdale. So they tried to find, kind of a central location, I guess. And so 2 hours down, the thing was 3 hours, and then 2 hours back. And then bright and early wake up call for cross country practice this morning.
Oh my! Where are you at cross country practice?
Well, because I have to take my daughter who can't drive.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, so that was at 6, and then
can't she just run there?
Yeah, seriously, great call. Might have to look into that actually. Then summer school, and then I was just kind of chilling until now. So just tired. You know what I mean? Need to get a good night's sleep.
I hear you. Well, this show, of course, has multiple platforms you can watch and listen on. You can watch live on the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel or the WSBT radio YouTube channel, Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel. Either one of those. You can also listen live 960 AM here in South Bend, 106.1 FM in southwestern Michigan, as well as the WSBT radio app. And you can also listen on demand, sportsradiowsbt.com. And the podcasts, of course, are available for download on the Irish Breakdown podcast platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. That's where you will find them. They are just all over the place. So today is Wednesday, and when we were doing this show exclusively on the live YouTube stream at irishbreakdown.com before this week, before we joined forces with Sports Radio WSBT, it's always been Mailbag Day on the show every Wednesday. And what we do is we take questions about Notre Dame football and college football, whatever it happens to be, in the live YouTube chat. So that's what we're going to do today. We've got a few questions queued up. And also at the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge, if you're a subscriber to Irish Breakdown, you can go to the Champions Lounge, and we have some questions that were submitted there today. So I think that we are chock full of juicy, good questions. I wasn't able to log into the Champions Lounge here in the studio, so Vince has got those.
I got you.
Let's just fire them up. A lot of good Notre Dame questions to start us off from the Champions Lounge earlier today. Can you blow that up?
I think I probably can.
I can actually see it here offline. Ooh. If you just want to. There you go.
How about that? Is
that
better?
Yep, there we go.
All right.
This is from Domer Grizz, a subscriber to the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge. He says, I can rarely listen live to the evening show, so thanks for giving us the opportunity to submit questions in advance. No problem. Question 1. How will Notre Dame manage their 5-man rotation for the 2 main safety spots, nickel included, unless you think one of Schuler, Stroman, Johnson, Blair, and Talich will play there? So, interesting question to start us off with training camp starting next week. We are now 8 days away from the start of Notre Dame training camp. It is a week from tomorrow. So what do you think about that, Vince? How do you think they manage the safeties this season?
Well, I think a lot of that it remains to be seen, because it depends on who's going to step up and what that looks like, and who's going to kind of take that position by storm, and who they can trust. And I think those are all viable candidates for the job. If all of them come out and they're all amazing, then they'll come up with some sort of a rotation. I think that's probably the least plausible, situation to present itself. I don't think there's going to be that many guys that are going to get meaningful playing time. I think the max would be 4 total, including a Don Schuler. And, that would be, you got 2 guys that play the majority of the time. You got then 2 guys that kind of sub in, to give breathers or whatever. Maybe you get a third guy who gets a couple different series in a game when it is crunch time. Maybe you do see that depending on who makes a push, for that starting job and then the backup job. But I think overall, you're not going to see 5 guys in a rotation. I just think that's too many.
Yeah, I don't think you see 5. Tay Johnson obviously had a really good spring. He was a guy, now, granted, in terms of the live stuff, we only got to see the one scrimmage, and then we got to see the blue gold game. But on both occasions, Tay Johnson was popping out there. He was standing out. And Luke Talich had a really good blue gold game as well. I think Schuler and Stroman are going to Stroman, of course, being the Virginia Tech transfer for anyone who's not familiar with his name yet. I'm sure we'll start hearing about him a lot more next week once camp does start and we've got the chance to see some practices out there since we didn't get to see him in the spring. I think those are going to be the 2 main guys. I am curious, especially between Johnson and Talich, and I'm not throwing Blair out of the mix, but I think that he's probably got a little bit more ground to make up right now, as talented as he is, to try to work himself into that mix. I'm wondering if one of those other 2, like if we see some 3 safety stuff out there, because this is going to be such a position of strength. Like, do we see 3 safeties out there on the field at the same time? I think that could happen. But again, I think Schuler is a lock. I won't say Stroman is a lock because there have been other transfers in the secondary who we thought maybe they were going to have to lean on, or they would lean on a little bit more when they came in, and that didn't necessarily pan out. But I think obviously Stroman, you expect him to be in the mix. That's why you brought him over, obviously, from Virginia Tech, because he's got a lot of experience. But then between Johnson and Talich, I think that right now going into camp, those are the next 2 main guys. And again, I'll be curious to see who's playing next to each other, and do we ever see 3 of them on the field at the same time in the opportunities. We're only going to get to see 1 full practice as of right now, and then a lot of partial practices.
And there's no pads, so
not on day 1. Yeah.
Right. I think that it just really depends. I think, Jadon Blair has a lot of tools that you like. I think Tay Johnson did really well in the spring, and Luke Talich, this is his opportunity, right? He's the oldest guy in the room outside of Jalen Stroman, who's a 5th-year transfer. But Luke Talich is going to be a true junior, and he is the old man of the room of guys that have been at Notre Dame, and so this is going to be kind of his opportunity, I guess. So, it depends on what these guys do. It just really does. And like you said, we get 1 full practice, and it's the first practice of the season. It's non-padded. They're going to be out there in helmets. So, like, what are we going to be able to ascertain from that 1 practice? The answer is not much.
Not a lot.
So we're going to have to really kind of dig into sources and the coaching staff that we get to talk to at various times, and the players, and those kinds of things, because we're just not going to see it with our own eyes until everybody gets to see it with their own eyes when they play Miami.
The biggest things that we'll potentially get from the rest of the practices that we get to see, which are all like the first 5 period type practices, are just going to be, okay, who's out there with the first team offensive line, who's out there with the first team defensive line, those kind of things. And even that can be scattered sometimes. Like, they've gone out of their way at times to avoid really showing as much depth chart as they can, to kind of keep it to some positional drills and those different kind of things. So we'll see how it goes.
Yes, we will.
Still starts next week, so we'll be out there, and we'll get to talk to plenty of coaches and players and all that kind of stuff as well. Dorgers also asks, what has been the best part about returning to radio for me? For others not in the studio, how different is it for you, if at all? Well, it's a lot different than just hitting go live on a YouTube stream. I will tell you that. I'll turn the camera here. Let's see if I can turn this without messing.
We're digging in here.
Everything up. So, like, I'm turning the camera on, like, the YouTube stream, and you can kind of see I've got this is This is the soundboard right here that plays like the opening, some music and some different bumpers, and the commercials are over here. So I've got 2 different screens up here, plus this control board down here. And I mean, I've done it before, obviously, but it's been 3 years since I was in here. So the biggest thing is just remembering what to hit and what not to hit. And like the first day of the show, I did everything right from the radio perspective. And then I forgot to do the one thing I've been doing the last 3 years, and that's it. Go live on the video stream. And now my camera's all out of whack because I took it out of position.
Uh-oh.
So let's see.
Bob's going to come get you.
I know. And they put out a memo to everybody not to touch that thing either. So
dang it.
So that's that's the biggest thing. It's just getting reacclimated is the biggest thing, and in terms of the best part of returning to radio, I mean, it's only been 3 days so far. There is a comfort zone, but I will say, like, just kind of being back here and being around some good people that I used to be around. Bob, our old buddy, our engineer, who I had to call right before the show started.
Yes, you did.
Speaking of buttons that needed to be pushed or not pushed, and Jim Irizarry as well. So, I mean, I think that's been the best part so far, just kind of being back in the loop with those guys on a regular basis. It's been a lot of fun so far.
Yep.
All right. Next question, Vince.
Oh, yeah. I got to scroll down, don't I? I have to be that guy.
You're in charge.
Right. There we go. I don't know. I don't like it, but there we are.
Notre Dame football mailbag that we're doing.
I'll let you be able to see who sent it first, and then I'll scroll it over.
Okay. What is that? I feel like I'm doing an eye chart here. BA5083. Is that what that says?
That's what I got.
All right, I got it. He says, he or she says, from what I understand, heading into the playoffs last year, Notre Dame's offensive line ranked 11th out of 12 playoff teams in pressures allowed on the quarterback. Given Riley Leonard's ability to evade pressure and extend plays, are we overestimating how good the O-line will be this season because of his mobility?
No is the short answer. The long answer is I would like to see that ranking, number one, on pressures allowed, and seeing that Notre Dame was 11th out of 12. But there's a lot of things that go into that, too. I mean, IU was part of that mix. Boise State was part of that mix.
Mm-hmm.
There were some teams in there whose schedules did not match Notre Dame's schedule. So, that's part of it as well. Did Riley Leonard take some sacks off the board? That kind of a deal? Sure. But pressures allowed. He was still pressured. Just because you don't bring down the quarterback does not mean he's not being pressured. So, pressures are still counted even though you have a mobile quarterback. So I would caution that as well. Look, it's just going to be different this year, right? I mean, you had a bunch of injuries at the end of last year as well. So that's part of it, bringing those guys together. And now you've got a group of 5 guys, barring anything else happening, that have a bunch of starts under their belt. And so not only do they have starts under their belt, but they also have an entire offseason of working together, -1 spot, obviously. So I don't think we are overestimating how good the offensive line is by any stretch. I think they are a top 5 offensive line, and I think they will maintain that ranking throughout the season, regardless of who is behind center.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got to remember that they had a couple, they were down a couple guys, right? Like one, they were down Charles Jagasaw. You got to remember how to say his name correctly. They were down him all year until they got into the playoffs. And so that was a learning experience for the left tackle, Anthony Knapp. Now Knapp comes back with a full season of experience under his belt. Emil Wagner, who had never started a game before last year, full season under his belt. What should have been the number 1 line never got to play together all last year.
Right.
Like Ashton Craig was out for most of the year from the Purdue game on because of his own injury. So you got Pat Coogan out there. Coogan played well, but he wasn't Ashton Craig. So I think that just having that year of experience, as comments were flashing as Craig says there in the chat, I think that's going to be huge for him, and the opportunity to hopefully all be able to play together, because that's what you lack when you've got to plug holes like that, is that full unity of the 5 men. And as we've talked about before, Vince, Knapp's play started to rise at the end of the season because of two different things. One, he had so many games under his belt. Two,
Sure.
it got significantly better when Billy Schrouth moved over to left guard as well.
I mean, that was a watershed moment for the left side of the line. There's no doubt about that. And, Billy Schrouth is a very underrated nationally. He's not underrated here on this channel, but he is very underrated nationally and doesn't get a lot of, respect, I don't think. And I think that's going to change, throughout this year. I think Billy Schrouth is one of the better linemen on this team. And having him next to Anthony Knapp is huge. And look, everybody wants to dog Anthony Knapp, and I get it. We all think that he's probably playing out of position. The bottom line is the coaching staff loves him, and he was a very good run blocker last year. He's got to improve on his pass blocking. But does anybody think that he's not going to get better from the end of last year to the beginning of this year? I just don't even see how that's not possible, right? So Anthony Knapp's going to be fine. He's going to be fine at left tackle. Can everybody else, and Anthony for that matter, stay healthy and stay together the entire time? I mean, that's going to be the kicker. If they can stay healthy and they can get Charles Jagisaw back and all of those different kinds of deals, this offensive line is going to be not the problem if they're not scoring points.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the yards per carry that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price had. Again, I know the question was about pass protection, but still, it's not like.
But again,
an inept offensive.
Pass protection is the question mark, right? I mean, it's something that they have to get better with, and so that is a question mark until we see otherwise. But we're not overestimating it. I think we're taking a very logical approach to where they are going to get better in the offseason. That's just
because the other part, because again, Riley Leonard and the passing game, that was something that obviously, it got better in situations, but that was something that was lacking. And if you've got a quarterback who knows he can bail himself out with his legs, he can hang out in the pocket a little bit longer. Well, what also happens when you're in the pocket a little bit longer, the pass protection is eventually going to break down. You can't hold up for 4 to 5 seconds every time, so that's part of the equation as well. And I think the ball is going to come out a lot quicker this year.
Oh, I think that's huge too.
With the quarterback. Yeah.
100%.
Yep. All right. From T-Shoop 11, as we continue the Notre Dame football mailbag, outside of a position group, what is the biggest roadblock for the Notre Dame team this year? Very broad.
I don't like the term roadblock. I think, maybe one of the biggest questions or, something along those lines. Like, I just don't like the word roadblock, because that leads me to believe that they can't get around it or they can't get over it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of question marks around the team. I would say if we're not going to choose a position group, then it would be Chris Ash. He's the biggest question mark. He has the most say-so on what happens on the defense. And, he's going to have his fingerprint on this defense, calling the plays and all of those different things. It's a question mark. We don't know what it's going to look like. I wouldn't call it a roadblock. I would call it a giant question mark. Now, he's got a lot of things to work with. As a coach, you walk into that room and you're like, whoo, baby, all I have to worry about is the X's and O's, because the Jimmies and Joes, we got it. So I think that's huge if you're Chris Ash.
Yeah.
But it's still a question mark that we don't have an answer to. So that would be mine outside of a position group.
I agree. It is as much a question as it was for Al Golden coming in the door. I guess it's, almost 4 years ago now. I guess it's in years, it's still 4 seasons ago. It's Al Golden was coming from the NFL, hadn't been a coordinator in a long time, and there were some growing pains, obviously, in year one. We all know that. And now you've got Chris Ash, just like Al Golden. He's been a college head coach before, but he's coming from the NFL as a position coach, just like Golden. And so there's going to be some questions. How's he going to call things? Will he call things perfectly? I think that to me, the quarterback is still a big question. I'm not going to call as you said, Vince, I'm not going to call either one of these things a roadblock, but I think that those are the two biggest questions that have to be answered. As talented as both of the quarterbacks are, they are still inexperienced. They'll be making their first career start in a road game, and you've got a defensive coordinator who hasn't called a even though he was a coordinator for a national championship team, Ohio State, a few years back when Urban Meyer was still there. He hasn't called a defense for a few years, and he's coming from the NFL as a position coach. So there'll be some growing pains there as well.
Right. And he was co-defensive coordinator. That is a point that needs to be made,
True. All right, we're doing the Notre Dame football mailbag here on this Wednesday. Don't forget, you can watch this show live with your eyes on YouTube, whether it's the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel or the Sports Radio WSBT channel. You can watch it live on YouTube, and we're going to take more questions coming up right after this. We continue along with Vince DeDario, Sean Stiers on this beautifully hot Wednesday. I guess I should say it's a little bit warm outside once again today, Vince. You can tell summer is here just in time for the start of training camp next week.
It is ridiculously hot. Trying to do anything that needs to be done outside prior to the noon hour. I will say that. So my kid was planning on going out and kicking today, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to do it this afternoon." I go, "Dude, have you looked at the weather?"
I know.
And consequently, he was out there at 9:30. So because he wanted his old man to shag for him.
Good call.
That was not going to happen at 1 o'clock. So
very good call.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a little toasty today.
We were talking about the Notre Dame offensive line in the last segment, and Toonces in the YouTube chat said, I think people would feel better if it was Tony Knapp instead of Anthony Knapp. Do you think if he just goes by Tony, a little less formal, like would that win some people over, Vince?
Maybe, but I mean,
Vincent. Nobody calls you Vincent.
No, they don't. Only people that don't know me, and that's how I know not to either continue talking on the phone or to answer an email.
Hello, Vincent.
When they call me that. So, but no, I think that he does spell it differently though. He spells it with an IE at the end.
True.
So it is very unique.
Very true.
Just saying. It
does look unique now that you mention it. All right, let's continue with some Notre Dame football questions, some questions from the Champions Lounge and the YouTube chat, Notre Dame football mailbag on this Wednesday from Irish Hawk 31. He's got 3 questions. Number 1, which freshman coming in will make the biggest impacts on this year's team, like what Kingston Viliamu Asa did last year? You got a freshman in mind?
It's tough because this team is still very young and they return a lot of guys, for this year. So, that's why you didn't see a bunch of Notre Dame guys in the draft because, Notre Dame was in the national championship and they returned most of their star power. You know what I mean? So I don't know how many opportunities a true freshman is going to get on this team. So this is a tough one. I will say I'm going to go outside the box, and I'm going to go Spencer Schrader. I think he'll end up being the kickoff guy.
Oh, okay.
So he's going to be on the field a bunch.
Been staying close to his heart with the kicker.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
I can live with that. I've got 2 guys in mind.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much stock to put in what Elijah Burris did, the freshman wide receiver, this spring, because it is spring and just
that's tough.
Don't always see a lot of carryover. He did show he can be a deep threat, though. Yeah. You can never have too much of that. So
true. I
think he could, at the very least, be part of the rotation. And
okay,
I think. Again, we'll get more glimpses of this.
Sure.
Once we get to camp and kind of see how things shook out this summer and all that kind of stuff, because things do change over the summer. The other freshman I'm thinking about is Dallas Golden. Like a potential 2-way guy. Could he even sneak his way in there on the offensive side of the ball? Or does he make his way into the rotation at cornerback? He's very versatile, both in his ability to play both sides and his ability to play different positions in the secondary. So those are the 2 that I'm looking at right now. One we obviously got to see in Elijah Burris in the spring. The other, Golden, we didn't. But those are the 2 that I'm kind of looking at now. We'll see if that holds up at all.
I like both of those guys. I think they have an opportunity. I think the wide receiver rotation is going to be tough. Just because I think there's 4 guys that are locked in to that rotation, and how deep are they going to go? Are they going to go 5? Are they going to go 6? How many open slots are there? And there's a slew of guys that could eat up that 5th and 6th spot. You know what I mean? And, if a true freshman ends up in one of those spots, then they're doing some work, because I think there's a lot of talent there at the wide receiver position. So I think those are good choices. I do. I think those are good choices. It just depends. Like, Kingston did
it's hard to predict with freshmen when we haven't seen them come in.
I mean, look, there were, Anthony Knapp was a true freshman last year.
Who would have predicted Anthony Knapp was going to play last year? Yeah.
And nobody would have predicted that he was going to play tackle either. So,
Correct.
And he started 15 games. So there you go. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen when it comes to injuries and whatnot, but I think those are good choices.
Scott says, I like this question. Not sure about this season, but he thinks Burris is still profoundly underrated. His ceiling's way higher, in his opinion, than most believe. I think that there's a big ceiling there as well. And again, like what that looks like this year, I don't know, especially because he is a receiver and but I think that there's, we've talked about whether it's like 5, 6, 7, 6 or 7 is probably the number.
7's tough. That's a lot of guys to get on the
7
field.
is tough. Because the other factor in this whole thing is Jeremiah Love lining up out there as a receiver, which I think that he will. And so does that take some opportunities away from some of these younger receivers? It's going to be really interesting to see.
Because you've got Jaden Greathouse, Will Pauling, Jordan Faison, and
Malachi Fields.
Those three are those four, they're locks. Like they're going to be in the rotation. So then you've got Cam Williams, who, everybody loves to think about Cam Williams and his 5-star life. And then, KK Smith, is he going to have an opportunity to do something? Micah Gilbert, we didn't see a lot of him in the spring because he broke his hand, right? Then you got Elijah Burris. Logan Saldate has been around for a little bit. Scrap Richardson made some plays in the spring. There's Jerome Bettis Jr. There's a lot of guys who have an opportunity to make some noise here, and I think that's a lot of guys for 1 or 2 spots. That's the only thing that worries me. But like, I love the competition. Frankly, it's gonna be tough for a true freshman. That's all.
I agree. Joe asks if Golden has to have a number that isn't used on both sides.
No, they're not going to play guys on both sides of the ball. So
you don't think that Dallas Golden's going to see snaps in his career on both sides of the ball?
In his career or this year?
In his career.
No, I don't.
I think he will.
I think Notre Dame's too deep. They don't need to do that.
I think he will.
Okay.
I'm going in on that. But to Joe's point, he can always switch a jersey when he's on the set. Like if he's I can't remember what his number is off the top of my head. So I'm just
14.
Is it 14? Okay.
And that's the same one as Micah Gilbert, by the way.
So there you go. Yeah. So like if he was going to play on offense, he can be 14 on defense. He can always find a number that's not
for sure
and swap on the sideline for that.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Seen guys do before.
For sure. If this was the wide receiving core of 2 years ago, then let's have that talk. You know what I mean? But I just think they're too deep on the in the wide receiver room that they don't need to have somebody split time. So
yeah,
that's just my opinion.
Well, but again, like how much he's playing, like when the game is on the line is one thing, but as a young and talented guy, if you're in some blowout situations, who's to say if we don't see him on both sides of when Purdue comes to town?
I'll say it because I don't think he's practicing on offense. So I don't think he knows what the heck he's doing.
Well, we haven't seen him at practice yet, have we?
That's a lot to throw at a freshman. How about that? That's a lot to throw at a freshman. Being the backup corner, which I think he has a really good chance of being.
Travis Hunter handled it okay.
He's not Travis Hunter.
He was at an FCS, HBCU.
Correct.
Different story, but
very different. Okay. And the depth at Colorado is nowhere near what the depth is at Notre Dame either.
Right.
So,
and it definitely the depth at Jackson State was nowhere near.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
But I think the guy is talented and he's going to have some opportunities.
I get that. Like 70% of the guys at Notre Dame played on both sides of the ball in high school, and they were really good at it.
Yeah.
So
next question is which offensive lineman takes the biggest step forward? I just think it's going to be Knapp.
Yeah, me too. And I want it to be Knapp. I'll go both directions on that. I want it to be Knapp because I was one of the leaders of the pushback movement on Joe Rudolph putting Anthony Knapp at left tackle after Charles Jagisaw got hurt. This is why are we doing this? What's happening? He's not good. All of those, he's out of position. That absolutely 100%. to an extent, he proved me wrong last year because he had 15 starts under his belt and he was more than adequate, especially with the guys that he went up against last year. More than adequate.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you said earlier, once Billy Schrauth came into the mix, he got really good. And I am confident that he's going to get better from the end of last year to the beginning of this year. And I just want him to shut people up with his play. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
That would make me very happy that he's just like, look, guys, I got this. I can be a good to very good college tackle. And then when he goes to the NFL someday, they bump him inside, because that's, I think, where his ideal position is.
We're all just going to fight him playing tackle his whole time.
I know.
Aren't we?
I know. Seriously.
It's like, it's going to be a discussion point from start to finish, I think.
And does he finish his career at Notre Dame at tackle? Who knows? There's some really good tackles, obviously, that are on Notre Dame's roster. Or I should say there's guys with really good tackle potential on Notre Dame's roster with Lambert and Black, like that kind of. So maybe eventually those guys are like, they're too good to keep off the field and they're part of the best five. And then you bump him in.
I want to see how much stronger he is coming into this camp after a full season plus in Lando's program, because that was, he's got the long arms that you love, for a tackle, but he needs a lot more upper body strength and to be able to use those hands a little bit better and move the feet a little bit better as well. But he needs a little bit more, and that's what I'm curious to see, how much stronger he looks and how much stronger he plays. This year compared to last year.
Agreed.
And the final question from, who is this one from? This was
from Irish Hawk 31.
Irish Hawk. Will special teams be as good or even better this year? I think so. I think it'll be at least as good.
I do too.
This year.
Yeah, no, I do too. I think that I think that special teams coverage units are going to be outstanding because of the guys that you have to choose from. So I think they're going to be just fine. No problems there. The kicking game still remains to be seen. I like what I saw from Noah Burnett. Obviously, there were some things you didn't like when, the first kick that he had in the blue goal game was awful. The rest were all really good. So what does a summer of working with your snapper, your holder, et cetera, look like? I think they're going to be just fine. He had a great track record coming out of North Carolina. So I think that they're going to be good. And I think Matt Rendell is going to be better than he was last year with all the hoopla that Thor had, or whatever they were calling him, had coming into the season, which I think was way too premature.
Isn't it nice that we don't have to talk about the Australian punter this year because he's been around the block a time or two now?
The answer is yes, absolutely. But I think he's kind of figured it out too. And I hope that Marty Biaggi has figured out how to use Matt Rendell to the best of his ability as well.
I think special teams, as long as you've got a guy like Biaggi and a head coach like Marcus Freeman who puts an emphasis, like this is the old Frank Beamer kind of attitude that he's got to this. Like when Frank Beamer built up Virginia Tech from nothing when he was coaching, when he started there, he placed a priority on special teams. And it wasn't just offense and defense. There were 3 phases to Virginia Tech Hokie football, and that's how they built it up. And Marcus Freeman obviously places a high premium on special teams as well. He's not looking at it as a break even like his predecessor was, because things were so bad there for a couple of years with Notre Dame's special teams that, that's all Brian Kelly was hoping for. Can we just not be bad? Can we just not be a liability? Can it be a break even proposition? And he got it there, but Marcus Freeman has taken it with the 2 hires that he's made in Brian Mason and Marty Biaggi and completely elevated it. Now you've got the mad scientist Biaggi in the room to go along with all these athletes that Marcus Freeman and the staff are bringing in from a recruiting standpoint. Like he's got he's got some starters out there, but even the 2s and 3s who he's running out there, like the young guys who are playing special teams, they are so far and away, compared to the kind of guys who were playing special teams a few years ago. And I'm talking across the board. I'm not saying nobody was any good from a special team standpoint, but across the board, the kind of athlete who's out there on the field right now for Notre Dame is so different. And that's a big reason as well that Notre Dame's special teams are going to continue to excel.
Agreed. Absolutely agree with that.
We will continue with more Mailbag after we take another time out. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. And we're back. Hope you're having a good day. My name is Sean Stiers. I'm joined by my tired friend Vince DeDario.
Don't out me like that. Come on now.
You said you were tired at the start of the show.
I know.
We are in day 3 of this new joint collaboration between irishbreakdown.com and Sports Radio WSBT. I'm having a good time so far. How about you, Vince?
I think it's gone great. And I think the fan base is expanding. And you know what? And I like looking at you in the studio. So it's really win-win for everybody.
It's different, isn't it? After
it is
seeing
different.
me, in my den office, whatever space there for so long. Vince and I have been doing this particular show together for the last 3 years. And I've said for a while, Vince and I, 21 years ago, probably right around this time that we met, right?
It was
21 years ago, in what was the ESPN radio affiliate here in South Bend. I was working over there across town at a different radio group. The station is no longer here anymore for multiple reasons, but that's where Vince and I met, and we started doing the show. And some of the things that we're doing now, we were doing back then. But I would say that, I've said for a while that the show that we've been doing at Irish Breakdown is the closest thing to the vision I had for that show 20 plus years ago. We've talked about this before. We were you talk about shoestring budgets, like our shoestrings, like you were lucky if, like, when you tried to tie your shoestrings, that the shoestrings didn't just break. That's what the shoestring budget was.
Oh, it was bad
back then. We've talked about it before. I'll just go ahead and say his name, Mark Porter, who was one of the sales guys for us. He was the guy who was out, he was always hustling, trying to find us different sponsors and stuff like that. He owned a house, not owned. He and his friends were renting a house, maybe a mile from Notre Dame campus on, what's that street? Was it Twickenham that it was on?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It was on Twickenham. I think it was corner of Twickenham and McKinley. And so we took the show out, and he brought some boxes of pizzas. We did the show from his front yard one day.
Yes, we did.
At the corner there with the station banner. We're like, here we are.
Yeah, we did.
Doing the show.
It's one of the more fun shows that we ever did. I'll be honest with you. I had a great time just talking to people that were just walking by. Yep. It was fun. We were out with the people.
That was the shoestrings that we were dealing with back then.
Yes, it was.
Oh, Penn State Sports Talk is here. He kept it. I felt like he kept it fairly classy when he was here.
Yes.
On Monday.
Yes. I'm good with it. You want to be.
We jousted a little bit. I felt like he kept it in good fun, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we welcome fans from other teams, as long as they want to keep it classy. And if they just want to know about Notre Dame or our opinions or whatever, keep it classy, and we'll keep you in here. And I love that.
Mikkel is asking, and today is Notre Dame football mailbag day. He's asking about taking calls in the future. We have the technology. The question is, will we be allowed to unleash it? The real question is, if we open this thing up to phone calls, will you stay civil?
Yeah, it's a big one.
Will you stay classy? Will you stay classy enough?
Right.
That's the concern some have about it. You and I are both for it. At least I'm for it. Are you more in than out on it?
I'm kind of Switzerland on it, because I like taking phone calls from people. I am when it's a local show, because you kind of know who we're getting.
Yeah.
Now that we've kind of introduced the bigger picture, so to speak, you don't know who we're going to get. And that makes me a little nervous.
That's the thing. That's the thing. We know your online personalities, and we know that there have been some, like in this YouTube chat that we're in right now, we've had to ban some people because they were crossing lines just in the chat. What happens when you put those guys on the air?
Right.
And you don't know what their identity is. Scott is saying, please get a phone line where people can call and leave voicemails. Problem solved. I don't is there a service where you can do that? Is there I
don't know. That's a great question.
How does that work?
That might be a Bob question, actually.
Yeah. I can talk about, we can we can do that. Now, the other side of that is then you have to sift through all those calls and
correct,
edit some stuff.
And who's going to do that when we're on the air? Like,
exactly.
That's tough.
Exactly. Because see, Josh is saying no calls. There are plenty of people who are against. Maybe we should put a poll up on the Champions Lounge and find out where people stand on this. Who's actually in favor of it?
Who's in, who's out,
and who's not? How did Jesse get in this? Jesse's going to screen calls. Is that what Sly Fox
Yeah,
is saying?
I think that's what he means by that.
What chance of that happening?
Yeah. We're lucky we can get Jesse when he's here. Okay.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly right. All right. Well, do we have time for one more question before we get here?
I think we could throw this one in. Let me
like a short one.
Yeah, let me throw it up here. Add stage. There.
I think we're just gonna keep on taking some more mailbag questions in the second hour. So if you're watching live on YouTube, post your mailbag questions about mostly Notre Dame football. We'll answer some questions about some other stuff as well, but get them in there, and we'll keep doing it in the second hour of the show as well. So Coach LA, in each of Marcus Freeman's first 3 seasons as Notre Dame head coach, his team has lost to the best opponent on the schedule, and in 2 of those 3 years, also to the worst. With that trend in mind, do you believe 2025 will follow the same frustrating pattern? If not, what gives you confidence this season will be different? I'm hoping that they are past the horrible losses. That is still the potential stumbling block for Marcus Freeman, that he has to prove he can clear that hurdle, after NIU, obviously, last year. As to losing to the best team on the schedule, I mean, that's been Ohio State 3 years in a row.
Oh, right.
And, last year was in the national championship game. So if you just look at the regular season last year, they beat the best team on their schedule, whether that was Texas A&M or whoever it was. It took until the national championship game that they ultimately lost to the best team. And let's face it, Ohio State was clocking everybody in the playoffs.
Yes, they were.
They were just a juggernaut.
Just, ask Oregon how that went.
Exactly.
I mean, they were, it's just like any sport. You get hot at the right time. Ohio State got hot at the right time. I mean, and I think, was it the Michigan game that kind of woke them up? What was the reasoning behind it? But they were hot in the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. And Notre Dame was hot in the playoff as well. It's just Ohio State was hotter, and they made, 1 or 2 more plays than Notre Dame did, and they ended up winning the game. So I would take last year, as far as just as the, you lose to the best team on your schedule part. Is that accurate because they lost to Ohio State in the national championship game? Yes, it's accurate. But I would think more along the lines of regular season. And they didn't lose to the best team on the schedule. They beat the best team on the schedule in the regular season, right? The loss to NIU, though, is still quite the open wound, right? And I think, am I confident that they are going to break the curse of losing to the worst team on the schedule? I do. I would have also said that a year ago. So I think that one of Marcus Freeman's best qualities is that he learns from his mistakes, and he's always, he challenges everything, right? That's the gold standard and all of those things. I think that he's kind of got that part figured out. So I'm not worried.
All right. I will agree with that. He's Vince DeDario. I'm Sean Stiers. It's Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with Irish Breakdown. That's the end of hour 1 of the show. We've got South Bend Cubs baseball beginning in about 39 minutes. So we will sprint to the finish. We'll answer some more mailbag questions. That's the Notre Dame football mailbag edition of the show today. We will talk more Notre Dame football coming up right after this. We are back. It's the second hour of Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with Irish Breakdown. I got stuck. See, that's one thing we didn't have to do in podcast world, right, Vince? Is like we don't have to worry about opens and closes to segments and in and out of breaks and all that kind of stuff. We just yacked our brains out for 90 minutes to 2 hours.
We have to be much more regimented now.
I know,
which is weird. Like. Sorry, you have to cut that thought off because we got to hit a commercial break.
Because now it's commercial break. Not that we're complaining. It's just different.
No, it's got to get used to it.
Yeah, like we could be as long-winded as we wanted.
I know.
So
no rules.
I know. Literally. It is Notre Dame football mailbag day. Appreciate the comment from Corey in the YouTube chat. Just love IB, so we'd watch with or without phone calls. We were talking about whether or not we were going to do a phone call-in segment on this show. Let us know what you want to do. You can chime in on that if you want, whether it's the YouTube chat. I don't know. I'm going to have to find maybe a station email so people can listen on the radio and stuff like that. Right. One idea, I think someone kind of alluded to this, is, smartphones pretty much all have the voice apps.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could record something, so people could potentially, if we had an email address, you could record a question and email it into the show, and we could play it back that way. That would be something easy, that we could screen very easily. So
that's a good one. I like that thought.
Keep that as a possibility. Yeah. Let's get to some more Notre Dame football questions here. Scott L. Esquire says he is super high on Notre Dame football by the end of the year. Is it fair to be concerned that some combination of inexperienced quarterback play and the new defensive coordinator being new at Notre Dame costs us 1 to 2 games in the first half of the season?
1 to 2, not 2. Could it be 1 maybe? Yeah, I could see that. Being the case, and it is okay to be concerned because it's a question that we don't have answers to yet. I do feel very good about the quarterback play. I know they're going to be inexperienced. There's going to be, there's going to be mistakes that happen due to inexperience. I get that, but my counter argument to that would be 2 words: Mike Denbrock. I think he will do a very good job of calling plays to where the quarterback is very comfortable, whoever it ends up being, and puts them in the best position to be successful. And so I trust Mike Denbrock more than I worry about the mistakes that the quarterbacks will make. I am nervous about about Chris Ash as the new DC, and we talked about that a little bit in the first hour. I am cautiously optimistic, though, because he's got a lot to work with over there. It's just a matter of getting to know his guys, getting to know what works best for them, knowing what Marcus Freeman wants on the defensive side of the football, all of those things. And then how does that culminate when it's game day and he's making those calls on the fly? So I'm more nervous about that than I am about the offense.
Yeah, I mean, the question is it fair to be concerned? As of right now, it is, because you have nothing to go on. Right? Mm-hmm. You haven't seen the quarterback play either one of the quarterbacks play a legitimate snap in terms of a real game. So you have reason to be concerned. Now, if I'm going to do this on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put it at maybe a 3, because I feel very confident in what we've seen of these guys, and especially CJ Carr, just with the level of anticipation that he has, his ball placement, his decision making. Again, we haven't seen that in a real game, but I put it relatively low. It is going to be a question to what degree they're confident with him going on the, him or Minchie going on the road, game 1 at Miami, what they're willing to let him do. I'm pretty confident it's going to be a different degree than what we saw with the training wheels that Tyler Buckner had on him when they went to Ohio State 3 years ago. Agreed. I think it's going to look a lot different than that. And obviously, these quarterbacks are a different kind of quarterback than that. Now, if I'm going defensive coordinator, I'm not a whole lot higher. Maybe I go 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. Again, just because, Think about game 1 at Florida State with Marcus Freeman. Remember those explosive plays that his defense gave up? Everything, they ended up winning that game, obviously. Maybe you got a little help from Mike Norvell. They did end up winning that game. The offense put up some points. I think this offense, to your point, is going to score a lot of points this year. And so I guess my point with Chris Ash is there could be some growing pains. Marcus Freeman had him in year 1. Al Golden had him in year 1. So there could be some there. So again, is there reason for any concern? Sure. But my concern is just not at a high level right now.
And I think that's absolutely fair. I really do. I think that's absolutely fair. It's a new year. There's question marks, and we can say we know the answers. We could say how we feel and all of that, but none of us have those answers, right? And we're going to get a lot of questions answered in the first 2 games. A lot of questions answered, and it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Notre Dame's still a really good football team, and if they do what they're supposed to do, they're going to be a really good football team all season long. And so you have to do what you need to do in those first 12 games to get into the playoff. Then you let the chips fall where they may. You know what I mean? So you just want to get hot like Ohio State did last year.
Continuing the Notre Dame football mailbag as we field questions from the YouTube chat here on this Wednesday. Tommy Guns asks, which sport will be Jordan Faison's final season for a Notre Dame team? Lacrosse or football? I think there's a greater chance this lacrosse season is his final season, because I don't think he's going to declare for the draft after this year. I don't think he's going to be at that level. So, but I think a year and a half from now, after his senior season, and it's honestly crazy to think that Jordan Faison's already going into his junior season.
I thought he was only a sophomore, so there you go.
Yeah. I think a year and a half from now, he's going to have a decision to make, and that would, assuming that he does declare for the NFL draft after his senior year. I mean, what there's not even a declaration to make at that point. Like, if he gets an invite to the combine, he'll go to the combine. Where are you going to have a chance to make more money, NFL or lacrosse? Of course, it's the NFL. If he obviously gets drafted or even signs as an undrafted free agent. So much greater chance that this upcoming lacrosse season is going to be his last season, I think.
But then he'll have another Notre Dame season, right?
Football season. Yeah.
Right. It just says which sport will be his final season for a Notre Dame team. I think it's going to be football. I don't think he plays lacrosse his senior year is what I'm saying.
That's what I just said.
Right. But I don't know that answers the question. Am I reading the question wrong?
I think you might be.
Okay. He wants to know what sport is going to be his final season at Notre Dame.
Oh, I thought he meant between, like, going into this season, which, like, his junior season of football, his junior season of lacrosse.
Gotcha.
Which of those? So I think that's how I.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, you and I are on the same page. I think
so.
I think that there's a lot to be determined when it comes to Jordan Faison. Right now, he's not a draftable wide receiver in the NFL. And so his junior and senior year, which I agree with you, he will play both. I think those are going to be huge for him to see if he's an NFL prospect. If he's not an NFL prospect, he comes back and plays lacrosse with his brother for another season. I mean, that's definitely, a possibility as well. But I think if he keeps projecting and keeps getting better at his craft, then he'll have an opportunity. But I think it's going to be football.
Yeah, Tommy said you were right. I think we were both right. It's just that we answered it differently.
Yeah.
Like the way, essentially, if the question is which is going to be the last sport that he plays at Notre Dame, it's going to be football.
Yeah.
Because he'll play his senior season of football. He won't play his senior season of lacrosse.
The only way it's not football is if he doesn't do well.
Yeah. He's not even considered by anyone for the draft, any of that kind of stuff.
That'd be a major liability of him playing lacrosse during the draft.
Exactly. Well, if he's good, if he has a good enough season this year and then builds on that next year, he'll get a combine invite. And so all of it, so he wouldn't even be going to school at that point.
That's a good point.
To play lacrosse. He's going to be getting ready for the NFL draft if he's in that, considered in that realm, in that ballpark. Tom Frawley says this season gives him serious flashbacks to the 77 and 88 year.
Wow.
National championships.
I'm pushing that one towards you because I obviously don't have flashbacks to 1977.
I don't either.
And I don't have any for 88 either. So,
yeah. I mean, I remember Notre Dame was great in 88. I wasn't here for that in 88.
That's right. You were a fan from afar.
Yeah, exactly. Tom also said somebody asked him today, what would you be if you weren't a Notre Dame football fan? His answer was ashamed.
I love that, Tom. That's a great answer. That's a fantastic answer. I don't know what I would be. I became a Notre Dame fan because I lived here. That's honestly why. My parents weren't sports fans by any stretch of the imagination. You know, like I think my mom became a sports fan because I played sports. You know, it was one of those kinds of deals. And so I kind of had to find things myself. So I don't know what college team I would have gravitated towards if I didn't have Notre Dame in my backyard, to be perfectly honest with you. So my family was all big Cubs fans because they were all from Chicago and they were Bears fans. But as far as college is concerned, I don't know. It's a great question. I really don't know.
Yeah, you know, where I grew up in Kansas, growing up in the 70s and 80s, both Kansas and Kansas State football were horrible. They were literally two of the worst programs in Division I at that point. And I've taught, you know, that was at the, you know, again, 70s and 80s. So we're talking about the peak of the Nebraska-Oklahoma football rivalry. And literally every year, you know, I lived in Manhattan from like, what would I have been? Second grade through seventh grade, you know, so fairly young still. And living there, one year you had Nebraska coming to town. The other year you had Oklahoma coming to town, you know, so you had Crimson and you had Red. And each year it was just an invasion. They invaded the stadium and filled it up. The only other sellouts that Kansas State would have would be the Kansas State, the Sunflower Showdown, they called it. So like I was not a big fan of either one of those teams. Between the two, I like Nebraska a little bit more, but it was tough. It was like living in a state that had pseudo Division I football, but was just awful. And that's kind of, you know, the family background that I had, how I ended up gravitating towards Notre Dame as well, because there wasn't any legit college football team in the state. And I mean, you know, think about Indiana growing up around here. There wasn't much back then either.
Purdue was good, like in that, and I say good almost with quotation marks around it. You know what I mean? Like I remember the Drew Brees years and, you know, that kind of deal. But they have way more of a football history than IU does, you know. And so there's a lot of Purdue football fans around here, and now there's a lot of IU manufactured football fans over the last 365 days. But yeah, I think
they're all in.
They're all in, baby. They're all in. So maybe I would have focused more on the NFL. I don't know if there was no Notre Dame. It's a really good question.
I scrolled back through the mailbag, and Mark had a couple questions that he put in earlier that I almost forgot. He says, regarding locker room NIL player drama / politics, do you see revenue share, which goes equally to all players, reducing player-to-player jealousy over NIL, which also continues?
Well, I don't know that I mean, look, Marcus Freeman's big on culture and all of those kinds of things, and I don't think that there is major jealousy. You know, look,
you might wish you were making more, but
right,
at the same time, if you're not Jeremiah Love, you know why Jeremiah Love is making more money than you.
Correct. Right? It's exactly right. It's like, am I jealous that the principal of my school makes more money than me? Sure, but he does the different job than I do. You know what I mean? He is more valuable to the building than I am. Right. And so it makes sense. And I think these guys are old enough and mature enough to understand that. And you know, they do go to Notre Dame, right? So I don't think it's an issue. I think that the revenue share will make people happy, obviously, but I just don't know that there's a ton of jealousy to begin with. I think Notre Dame does a good job with their NIL stuff to make sure that guys are taken care of. And I mean, even the walk-ons are getting NIL stuff. You know what I mean? And so everybody's getting taken care of. I don't think anybody's paying for school anymore. You know, it's all free essentially. And I think everybody's good. I think they can see exactly like you said. There's a reason Jeremiah Love makes more money than Justin Fisher, for example, the walk-on tight end. And Justin's not a fool. He doesn't think that he deserves to make the same amount of money as Jeremiah Love, right? So I think that things work their way out. And it's the same thing in the NFL, right? Or in the Major League Baseball or whatever. Not everybody makes the same amount of money in the locker room,
Yeah.
So these guys figure it out.
Exactly. All right. Let me move some things around here quick. Where did we go? I enlarged the screen and it made things
boy,
blew it up here, and so I was having trouble navigating. Mark also wanted to know the worst baseball slide or embarrassing play I ever saw Jesse make. He said that made you want to dive for cover like a CEO at a Coldplay concert. I suspect it was a Pete Rose type. I'll just say he wasn't the best fielder, and so not that he ever made any hugely embarrassing play, because he just more so than the fielder, he just didn't have a great arm. That was the biggest thing. So like the only thing that really comes to mind, because he never made, like some big fatal blunder or anything like that. Now ask me, did he run through some stop signs when I was coaching third base? Yes. And he would always let me, fortunately for him, he didn't get thrown out. So he's like, oh, you should have been sending me to be, those kind of things, So there was never any real fatal one by any means, but sometimes the defense could get a little bit adventurous.
He was playing the hot corner.
He was.
His third baseman.
Yeah. He was much better with, like stopping the ball, fielding, like pick it up. The throws could be a little bit adventurous sometimes.
So you gave him the position where you had to throw it the furthest.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just messing with
you.
The
thing with that, I mean, in high school baseball, the thing with that, our home field had crazy lip over there at third base.
Awful.
And because he was, like a linebacker, and had a big chest, he was fearless in terms of putting himself in front of the ball.
Yeah.
And a lot of other guys, they call it the hot corner for a reason. They wanted to play Olay over there. So my rationale was, even though the arm wasn't the best, as long as he could keep it in the infield, was willing to get in front of it, I could live with some adventures from time to time.
I get that.
And he made a couple really good stops against Penn in our game that
there you go. See,
our extra inning game that we made against Penn that wouldn't have got us to extra innings.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your first baseman was even less mobile, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And that was the thing, like perfect world, he probably would have just played first base. But again, you're in high school, so you're also trying to get the best bats in the lineup and all those different kind of things. And the other first base type options were only first base options, where at least like with Jesse, again, there was some flexibility there. So, yeah.
Anytime we can roast Jesse live, that's the way we want to play it.
Yeah. Mikhail wants to know, question for both of us, most memorable moment from last season.
This is easy for me. It was the road trip to the national championship and everything that surrounded that. I mean, yes, they lost, and obviously that was disappointing, but being able to travel all the way down to Atlanta from South Bend with my good friend Sean and my son, who I probably won't be doing a lot of road trips with for the next, few years. And it was awesome. Like, we had a great time. It was a long trip. Don't get me wrong. It was a long trip, but we had a lot of fun doing it. And I will always remember that trip. Again, it would have been great if they would have won, but I will always remember that trip. It was a lot of fun.
Good times. Good times. That's absolutely right. That was a very good, very fun experience that we got to make. We were living on fumes by the time it was all. Didn't we figure we were gone for 48 hours and we were in the car for roughly 24 of it?
For most of it, yeah.
Yeah, that was something.
It was something. But you got to go to Buc-ee's for the first time.
That's true.
So that was a monumental,
got the barbecue, moment. Whatever sandwich and all that.
Yeah.
That Buc-ee's was pretty amazing. There was a lot of stuff in there. My
People
wife
don't
was
get
very
it.
jealous when I got back.
I'm sure
that I
she
got to
was.
go. I think mine would just be Love's run against IU.
Oh, that was great.
Like if I'm going on the field,
Yeah,
I would go with that. Such an electric moment. And like I feel like even though it was just one play, it had a huge effect on the rest of that game and the way IU had to play Notre Dame. And really, I think it had a huge effect on the rest of the playoff run, even though Love wasn't completely healthy with how teams had to play Notre Dame, because you had to be able to respect that. So that's what I would go with.
I love it.
All right, we're going to take our final break, and then we're going to be back to wrap things up. A couple more questions that will slide in here. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat. We got time for 2 or 3, probably more questions on the Notre Dame football mailbag here tonight as we wind down. South Bend Cubs baseball coming up in a few minutes on Sports Radio WSBT. Joe is asking, I mentioned the South Bend Cubs earlier. He asked if they're any good. Will they make the postseason? I don't think that they're probably going to make the postseason this year. They've had some really good teams. They've won a few Midwest League championships over the years. And like if you look at where the Chicago Cubs are right now, a lot of good young talent that's come through South Bend here, previously.
Yeah, they're one game under 500 right now, which I believe puts them in 4th place in the division. And I don't know, do you know how many teams make it into the playoffs? I know
at the top of my head, it's been
not a bunch.
Yeah.
I was trying to look that up, but then I got caught up in actually talking about Notre Dame football. So, but they're in 4th place, 1 game under. So I don't know that they're really going to have a shot at it. And the season is rapidly approaching its finality, because the minors end before the majors. So
right. I mentioned before how I lived in Manhattan, Kansas when I was young. Joseph is asking if I was there during the Bill Snyder years. I was not. I missed that by, I believe it was 7 years. I think he was hired in 88. And I moved from Manhattan, Kansas to Salina, Kansas in the summer of 81 before my 8th grade year. So out about 7 years before old Bill came to town.
Old Bill.
A lot of lean years before Bill Snyder.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
Joe wants to know, what if Notre Dame goes 9-3 this year? Do you think that will have an effect on the current commitments before they sign on the dotted line?
No, not at all. I don't. I think the days of the current season having anything to do with commitments are kind of behind us because things are just so set in stone anymore, and it might affect 27s or 28s. It's not going to affect the 26s. Those guys are here. Those guys are signed. Those guys and the way that Marcus Freeman does recruiting, those guys are solid, and so I'm not worried about that. And if they need to spin it with those guys, but like, look, we're 9-3 this year. Can't wait for you to get on campus to fix some of these problems, that kind of a thing. So I don't think it's going to be an issue.
I agree. I think that in today's world, the thing that's going to sway people, recruits much more than the record on the field is going to be what's going into their pocketbooks. Yes, exactly. Vince is holding up, rubbing those fingers together.
Yeah, man.
That's exactly it.
Money, money, money.
I agree. USMA 87 with a suggestion, do live polls during the break. There are several internet-based platforms for that. That would make us have to think. We would have to come up with polls that we could do.
Every commercial break.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. Something to think about.
We might be able to see if we could come up with at least something.
Yeah.
We'll have to
we could have it on the fly. Like maybe a topic comes up that we're talking about and turn that into a poll. It's definitely possible.
Scott L. Esquire, would 10-2 get Notre Dame into the playoff in 25? How can Notre Dame develop over the span of its scheduled games to be championship run ready by the end of the year? Is becoming more championship ready worth a loss?
It's a great question, Scott. I think, without all of the data that you need at the end to decide which 10-2 team makes it in, you know what I mean? That goes a long way. I would say overall, I think a 10-2 Notre Dame team has a great shot of getting in. Obviously you're going to be playing on the road in the first round. I would think you're going to be one of those lower seeds, but Notre Dame with eyeball, like if it's between like Notre Dame and a couple of other teams or something at 10-2, obviously the schedule is going to come into play. Who did you lose to? When did you lose? How did you lose?
See, and that's the thing. Cause like if the second loss is late November, or not late November. Well, even if it is late November, basically from late October on, look at the teams that they're playing. Do you expect any of those? So that's probably going to be a major upset, and that's going to be a big stumbling block for Notre Dame, like when the loss comes and who it's to.
I mean, if you lose to both Miami and Texas A&M, you're 0-2 to start the season. Then you go 10-0. Okay, you went 10-0. That's great, but who did you beat?
But you also, lost to the two best teams on your schedule most likely.
Right. So there's just a lot of question marks that go into that. I do think 10-2 is good enough to get Notre Dame in more often than it's not. So I think they'd have a great shot. But again, there's a lot of dissection that would need to go into that.
Salty wants to know which head coach is going to win a national championship first, Kalen DeBoer or Dan Lanning?
Probably Kalen DeBoer would be my guess here. I think he's more set up at Alabama to do it. Oregon has made some nice runs. They've done some good things. At the end of the day, they haven't been able to get over the hump. Alabama knows how to get over the hump. I realize it's a completely different coaching staff now, but it's just SEC football is still different than Big Ten football. And I also think that Dan Lanning's going to have to make some adjustments to the way they do things at Oregon to compete on a consistent basis in the Big Ten. They can't just be a run and shoot team all the time, that kind of a deal. They're going to have to get it figured out in the trenches. And if they can't do that, they're not going to win a national championship.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Alabama is still better than Oregon right now. I'm not particularly sold on either one of these guys being able to do that. I think that they can both be perennial playoff teams, but I'm not convinced that these are the guys who are going to win national championships. I've said it before. and I'll say it again, Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. That's why he got the Alabama job. But look at the history of Alabama football and what came before Nick Saban, what happened during Nick Saban. Like, Alabama was still a borderline playoff team. I think that with the same roster, if Nick Saban was still around, they probably would have been in the playoffs last year. I don't think that they probably lose to Vanderbilt last year. So, Kellen DeBoer, they're recruiting better.
Right.
They're still recruiting well. I guess I should say.
Yes.
They had a recruiting upswing in after Kalen DeBoer's first full season. So, I mean, they're still recruiting well. The question is going to be, can he navigate that SEC schedule the way Nick Saban was able to navigate it? There have been a lot of other pretty good head coaches who haven't been able to do that at the level that Saban did. And, again, like Lanning, look at what happened last year. 13-0 in the regular season, one and done. Playoff. So I'm not sold on either, but I think like you, if I had to choose one, DeBoer would be my pick because he's still at least got, I think, a little bit better situation right now.
Yep.
I'm looking. Salty also wants to know the chances Mike Norvell gets fired.
Season. I mean, if he goes 3-9 again, he's probably not going to be retaining his position as the head football coach. I would be surprised if they did that again, but I was surprised they did it then. So, I mean, what are the chances? 3 out of 10. I think they'll still be good in the ACC, good enough to retain his position.
Yeah, I think if they're anywhere close to what last year was like, then I think it's hot seat city, and especially with this whole Nick Saban thing hanging out there. Like, is there anything to this?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm just waiting for the first school to make that mistake and just get rid of their coach, thinking that they can get Nick Saban. And Nick Saban's like, "Yeah, I'm good."
But I mean, if you're Florida State and you know that you can get Nick Saban, like if they go out, put out feelers, and you know that you can get Nick Saban, you're going to make that trade-off 10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100.
I want Florida State and LSU to just fire their coaches thinking that they have a shot at getting Nick Saban. And then he's just like, "No, I'm good."
I'm going to go someplace else.
And then they're both in trouble. Like, they don't have a coach
to do.
Yeah.
That's right.
That would be icing on the off-season cake.
Salty's final question. What are the chances of Oklahoma being a top 8 college football playoff seed? I'll go 1 out of 10. That is it.
Yep.
We've talked about their schedule before. Like, if you look at their last, I think it's 5 weeks of the season, 5 or 6 weeks, it is a brutal close to the season. They finished with LSU. It is not a favorable schedule for Oklahoma. I know they've got Mateer and all that kind of stuff. Not a favorable schedule for Oklahoma to be thinking that they're going to be a college football playoff team. If they are, like, if they go through the schedule that they've got and they end up in the playoffs, they're going to be a tough out once they get to the playoff.
But the chances of that happening are slim to none.
Exactly.
And I am also not a fan of their head coach. I don't think Brent Venables is a very good head coach. I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. And I think, potentially this time next year, he will be, again, a defensive coordinator someplace.
Another Salina, Kansas guy.
Hey.
He was 2 or 3 years young. He went to the other school. I went to Central. He went to South.
Enemy.
I've told this story before. He and his older brother and I had a little rivalry over a girl.
Oh. And who won?
I won in the short. Well, I guess, I won in the short term, not the long term. Like, that was, but that's all not the same person I'm with now. Yeah.
That was a lot. Yeah.
I won 30 whatever years ago. Yes. He was an animal, though. He was a beast in high school. Brent Venables.
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
Wrestler?
He was well known. He was not.
Okay.
Not a wrestler. All right, we're going to wrap it up with that. Don't forget, tons of ways you can check out this show. Of course, you can watch it on YouTube. Thanks for all the questions that we got from the YouTube chat today for the Notre Dame football mailbag. Vince DeDario, thanks as always to you, sir. I will be talking to you again soon. And to everybody else, we will talk to you tomorrow right here. We've got South Bend Cubs baseball coming up next on Sports Radio WSBT.